Welcome back, guys. My name is Xaelfas, and this is Survival of the Fittest. Now, I started out this game not being sure what I wanted to do. As you can see on my hotbar, I went ahead and did my typical start. Same basic stat points and everything else. Maybe one misallocated stat. You know, it happens if I click too quick. Obviously, I'm shooting really bad right now. Thankfully, so is he, or I'd be dead already. And, come on. That was a horrible shot, and it just synced up perfectly. That worked out at the end. So, this is our loot crate. I still haven't decided what I wanted to do. I grabbed his narco. Wish he had a lot more. Because once we see this first event, we'll always have a better idea of what we want to do. Often you'll notice my real start doesn't even really begin until I see the first event. Now, that does virtually negate double taming, but I haven't always decided if I'm going to be doing any taming on the match at this point in the game. Sometimes I just run around and hunt things, grab loot crates, and kill every person that I can find, parachuting around looking for everyone, and managed to win a few matches that way. I don't really know how. It's not really a strategy in my mind, but hey, whatever ends up with a victory, right? Anyway, guys, I'm going to go ahead and grab a bunch of things. We have Brontos from the sky. So I'm going to tame Brontos this game, because anytime I have them as the first event that quick, that's what I want. Here's contestant number 1. Now I'm going to be jumping around and skipping ahead on a lot of this stuff, guys, because this was a very long match. This was 40-something minutes in total before I cut it. So I just kind of skipped out the more dull parts. Unfortunately, taming Brontos takes quite a long time, and, well, they're a bit of an issue. That's my fire you see off to the left. I went ahead and filled it up with meat, set the fires. I didn't even grab them until later towards the very end of the match. I get entirely focused on taming these guys. Now, unfortunately, as you can see, I didn't bring enough arrows to this plan because I made it a bit spur of the moment. Yep, that can be a problem. So, one thing that's good, though, is that Brontos move pretty slowly. I don't want to aggro that other one, but at the same point, I can't really do this without more arrows. So, where are we? Not in a good place. That's where we're at. Why? Because we want to make arrows. There's not very many berries up top. You can get some up there. I would maybe get enough to knock him out the rest of the way, but I'd have to run all over up there. It wouldn't be worth the time. So I go ahead, jump over here, and just try to do the best I can. I want to keep him on that side of the ramp. That way, so long as he's aggroed, he's not really going to be a threat coming over to me, because their tail hurts quite a bit. They have pretty decent damage. It's a massive area that they hit, so they are best when the circle has fully enclosed. But outside of that, they're just a giant slow tank. You're never going to chase anyone down with a Bronto, or should I say, if you manage to chase someone down in a Bronto, you probably should have been able to have killed them with a pick by that amount of time. But, you know, it is what it is. Now, the reason why I kept this section here was to show you that I went back, quickly made a bunch of arrows, and fired them at the wrong target altogether. This is not the same Bronto. For some reason, I think that I'd been convinced that he'd landed over there, but no. And I am very much capable of putting the entire episodes, but as you can see, these guys take quite a bit. Now, after doing this, I would have probably recommended to you that if you're going to do something like this, it might be more advantageous to run through mid, grab berries and things really quickly, or go ahead and jump straight off like I typically do, and grab, I would say, 4 bows and at least 200 arrows, and it would be much more advantageous to kind of herd them, if you will. And by that I just mean, in their case, they're a bit of a abnormal unit to try to herd. But you see these 2 over here on the left. I had these 2 over here. Had I just waited and looked around to see where Brontos were, I could have easily been working on arrows and bows and at this point had more than enough, if that had been a real focus. And just fire an arrow into one, go and snag the next one with another arrow. They're slow enough that you can easily hurt them. Now, that being said, it'd be much more dangerous because the moment you got hit by one tail, you would potentially be dead by the time you were done getting hit. Anytime you'd have a fog or something like that, you're not going to get any retaliation. And the tow port does take time to raise, so you can just unload into them and drop them. So that's the second time we ran out of arrows. I went and made more. And I guess it was the first time we fired at the wrong Bronto, right? I figured this guy's tow port's still up there. I fire into him, trying to finish him, bring him down. And then the second Bronto that we ran out of arrows on is the one at the top of the ramp. So, yeah, it is what it is. Now, at that moment, I actually thought he went down. It was a bit confusing, to say the least. Well, looks like it's time to make more arrows, eh, boys? When I said 200, I'm sure 200 arrows would get the job done most of the time. You could probably make quite a bit and just line yourself up a good number of Brontos. And now this particular match was done with the old Wall of Death, and so it was more of a steady draw-in. If anyone had been taming any Rexes or anything like this, they would have had to have dragged them away from their original location at the beginning of the fight, which is incredibly difficult to do because they will not stay aggroed on you. They'll aggro everything else around them. And if you're a roaming hunter, at this point you would usually be looking for techers and more oddball spots and things like that, at least in my opinion. Now, there's no rhyme nor reason to when it's right to hunt other players as far as matches go. I found some, with the new wall, found some new places to tech and things like that. It's become much more difficult to hunt. You have a lot more map unfolding. So you're much more better off working on your own strategy, in my opinion. Now, you can always hit the most popular spots and things like that, but your better players don't rely on traditional locations and things. They'll get wherever they need to get. So with the old wall, it was a good advantage for the Brontos, just in my opinion, because I've tamed, I think I've had as many as 4 Rexes at the same time, or rather 2 Rexes and a Spino, things like that, much more common. You can easily bring down as many as you could Brontos towards the wall than you could anything else at this point. And since they're carnivores, you can heal them up and things like that. So it's much more advantageous than Brontos, unless you just want those giant swipes to be right there in the center. We end up with the small raptor as well. Now, going Brontos, he'd have limited usefulness. I'm not going to be trying to level him up and things like I typically would to send after players and things, because I can't really split the attention between the tames, frankly. Now, moving along, we got our 2 Brontos and our raptor together. I'm looking at the time. I'm trying to figure out, if we can do anything else, what's the best thing we can do? And in my opinion, 2 Brontos won't cut it against a decently tamed apex predator. It can. The pushback from the tail and things. Now, an incredibly aggressive player with a decent level, pulling back as they need to, anything like that, they'd have the edge in my opinion. So, yeah, not going to cut it. We need another Bronto. And also, as that wall steadily closes in, I'm just trying to bring them in closer. Now, I'm pretty happy with the fact that it was another Bronto drop, only because, well, it brings up a few more options in terms of where I want to start aggroing one from. I still choose the guy that's been up here the whole time, but hey, it is what it is. Just jumped ahead to when it brought him down. He did manage to swipe me a few times. I did not have to stop and go get more arrows this time, so that was the first good time for that. Now here was what I've been worried about virtually the entire time. Someone's finally checking on top. Well, I say finally. Frankly, it's very early for someone to be here, particularly with tames. So either he saw the down Bronto or something like that. Something lured this guy here, or he was simply trying to do what I'm doing, getting my tames up where I need them. Now, I'm not ready to fight this guy. I'm too far away from my fighting Brontos, so my move is to get away. I try to go back up that ramp. He blocks me with his Bronto and stuff. I run back down, go around the other ramp, gather up my tames, hide behind them for a minute, try to recover a little bit because I was actually very low health. I thought at that point I was going to lose and this guy was going to end up with 4 Brontos, which would be great for him, but there would be no video on taming Brontos, and that would be a horrible thing. Now he's hiding behind there. I've been trying to deal with this guy off and on, but at least this time he didn't take my berries off, and he did earlier. So this is not the same player. See that helmet? The guy was in cloth? Yeah, not quite sure who this is, but it looks like we'll be seeing more of him. I'd really like to eliminate someone at this point. I feel, because even though at this point I'm not going to be able to let them recover health, if I could kill a player, I can get a good number of levels on these Brontos, and they'll be much, much more lethal. You can double their damage very quickly, and it just takes it, like, let's say all 3 swiped you at the tail at the same time, you could instantly die, and that's not an exaggeration. They're pretty brutal at times. Now, I definitely did not play my best here. I always tend to mention that I'm not a professional gamer or anything like that. If you are, it shows in the gameplay, and I am definitely aware of different things that I can do better and things like that at a given time. But what I'm really showcasing here is average, maybe slightly above average, I don't know, but average player really trying at these games. Now, the guys who do very well, I've lost in circumstances where there was no reason other than the fact that they simply outskilled me. I've been shot off of Rexes with a pistol simply because I sat there looking at him while he was I thought he was engaged with another player. He took the time to just pause for a moment, fire off 5 shots straight in my chest, and I'm assuming snag my Rex and kill the last player. So it was pretty intense. And for the first time, I make a good play, and I'm actually happy with the acid rain. You can hide under these edges, and I'm sitting pretty under my Brontos until it's clear. The best thing about that is, most likely anyone in armor is either stripped off their armor, or they've been losing their armor over time. At the very least, they're all taking some damage. So, the worst case scenario. Now we've got, let's just call him Frumpy, coming up here right now, which is our only enemy Bronto to deal with today. Now, unfortunately, I still got my Brontos on passive at this particular moment. That's why they are not engaging with me. There we go. Trying to correct it. Trying to make sure that it affects all of them and not just one. Sometimes if you are looking directly at a tame, you'll only affect that tame and nothing else. I'm not sure if they've changed any of that with the whistle commands, but it's always been a thing, so I try to be sure. And you see in chat, someone was commenting that about the 3 Brontos will definitely win. There was really nothing definite about this point. I am typically seeing at least 1 to 3 techers in a game, and often you can get long shotted off of a Bronto pretty easily. Now, they have to move back slightly outside of the wall to do the best with that, but it can be done. You can see this guy here landed a great arrow shot on top of a Bronto. That is not something you see every day, guys. So, naturally, I'm just trying to stay unengaged, let my Brontos do all the heavy lifting. It's what they excel at. Probably a bad move on my part, even checking the corpses, but always looking for guns or anything else that might tip the odds further in my favor. Downside is, wasn't paying attention to the enemy Bronto. I should have been plowing arrows into it while staying behind the other guys, or at least off to their side, but oh well. I'll reward them a few times by shooting them instead of hitting the correct button. Now, if they didn't have such a massive HP pool, I would be worried at this point, but realistically, as I've said, I'm just worried about being knocked off my Bronto, or rather, shot off of my Bronto. Now these are a bit problematic because I'm most likely going to be the only one taking damage out of this, which it looks like that's how it's gone. We got 2 T-Rexes hitting on 2 different sides. This one's done for easily, at least that much is obvious. The one over there, well, we'll just have to get to that when we get there. I'd really like to be able to focus on the player, but I can't afford to let all these guys' HP just be gnawed away while I try to slowly engage another player. We do have that other Bronto down. In more recent time, I would definitely tell you that you're better off, if it's especially a wild dino or something, have all your tames attacking whatever target you want them on, and just arrow down any big Carno or anything like that. It does significant damage to them, even though it doesn't seem as if it would. Now Mega Fog is yet another problem for me because now my main 2 Brontos, not the one I was on, but the ones with higher life, will not respond to my whistles and things. They can no longer see the other target. That other Bronto tail over there is actually trying to hit the T-Rex, but it didn't work out too well for me. Rewarded this Bronto with another arrow and just get some lucky swipes of the tail with that massive area of effect and win the game. Thank you for watching. Like and share to support. Subscribe for future content. Really, thank you guys. Take care.